Do you want to improve the sound of your brand new Mach 1 or Coyote with active exhaust while also gaining 2 to 10 peak horsepower? Well, maybe that's not enough. What if I told you that you could add 20 to 40 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheels for under $150? Well, you can, and it's easy. Let me show you how. In this video, we're going to go over how to install a resonator delete X or H pipe to your brand new Mach 1. What this video is about. What this video is about is cheap horsepower. And if you don't believe me, check out this graph. Steeda actually did a comparison where they had a brand new Mach 1 and they installed one of their X pipes and H pipes and ran it on their chassis dyno. And what they found was peak horsepower numbers, not surprisingly, marginal gains. We're talking 2 to 9 peak horsepower on their dyno. But what's really interesting is what happens to torque below peak torque. You pick up a ton. Check out the graph, zoom in. If you don't believe me, this is their numbers. But what we are gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to do it for even cheaper because their X pipes and H pipes are over $200. I'm gonna show you how to do it for 150 bucks using a CNL H pipe that I bought off of American Muscle. So for 150 bucks, this is what you get. Now you have the choice to choose between an X pipe or an H pipe. And really the difference, in my opinion, is up to sound. If you go with the X pipe design, we will pick up more peak horsepower, but you'll get a little bit more rasp, and I didn't want that. I really like the way this thing sounds with the exact active exhaust, but I just wanted a little bit more noise, so I went with their H pipe. So this is a straight through design. You can look totally through this and see out the other side. There is no resonator here, and you will also drop weight. So this is gonna be my first time jacking up the Mach 1, so let's see how hard that is, and let's get started. I can't speak for other new Coyotes, but this Mach 1 has a ton of shields under it, meaning you can't really see front or back where is a strong spot. Like usually in the front, I'll lift off the bottom of the K-member. You can't see it on this one. So I actually used the pinch welds, but a piece of wood, and found some spots to lift from. Not an easy car to lift up if you want, in my opinion, if you want to do it safely. So, you know, if you're working on a Mach 1, it definitely would help to have a 4-post or a 2-post lift to do this. But anyways, we've got it up in the air. Hopefully this is high enough. And now we can go ahead and start mocking up, and I'll show you, no pun intended, start showing you what you need to cut to install that cut and clamp H pipe that I have from CNL. Are the clamps that you're gonna reuse. And basically this piece right here, this whole resonator is coming out. And then the cuts, I imagine, are gonna be made somewhere back in here, and then the new clamps will go on. I got myself a fine blade on a Sawzall. You want to be careful though, because you've got the drive shaft, fuel tank. So again, we're gonna cut inward on this, measure twice, cut once. I'll look at the instructions next. The only part that wasn't clear in the instructions for me at first glance was step 2, where it says use the step down in the front of the pipe as a reference point. So what they mean is the front of the pipe, the clamp is gonna be like right here. You're not really gonna see this. But basically right where there's that little bump, you want to align the new pipe with that bump, basically where the end of the clamps are going to be. And then you come back, and then using your new pipe, that's where you make your marks to cut it. So that's what they mean there. Otherwise the instructions are pretty clear, but I just want to clarify that for anyone. I was going to show you on the car, but it's easier to do it, you know, on the ground. Just have the scale out. In case you're wondering, difference in weight, this one is about half as much as that. It's about an 8-pound savings. This is about 16.5 pounds, and that is roughly 8.5. So you're basically cutting the weight in half. If you also were wondering, this is a straight through design as well, but there's no crossover. So it's funny that they do this. Well, I guess there's technically a crossover since there's a bunch of little holes in there, but there's not a straight crossover like this one. So you're getting the benefit of weight A little extra noise if you want that, and then that clear crossover like that. And obviously an X pipe is gonna flow better at higher RPM, but you'll get a little bit more rasp. So that's why I chose the H pipe. Don't be surprised when you cut it. Actually, when you cut it, obviously you want this one to be longer because it has to slide up in the other side. So if you cut them and they're the same size, you screwed up, grab your MIG welder. So let's see, I'm gonna go deburr it under the car and see if we can't get this thing fit up in there. All wrapped up now. Now I just got to get it off the jack stands and on the ground. I can start it up. I will say that when you cut this, these clamps right here, so I try to cut mine really exact, and what wound up happening is the old pipe ends here, the new pipe ends like right next to it, and there's not much room. So you actually probably, when you cut it in the back, try and leave yourself some wiggle room so you can slide this thing back and get up into place. What I wound up having to do is take these apart, bend them open until these came out of their little inserts, and then I slammed it up over top of this, slid it into place, hammered it back in, and then put them all back together. I mean, that's one option, but it's just kind of a pain in the butt. And they have these little clips here that basically don't allow these to slide up any further. So I've seen ones before where you can slide these up further and get them out of your way, but on these, you know, you can't even get that little 1/4 of an inch right there because there's a lip. So kind of take these apart a little bit, not a huge deal, but that's the finished product right there. Looks pretty good. Honestly, the stock system really looks like, especially after adding the mid pipe, it kind of looks like a performance exhaust. I mean, these things are pretty stout from the factory. There's no major kinks or you know, weird stuff like I've seen on some of the other cars, even my wife's ZL1. This is a pretty solid exhaust system from Ford, so good job there. One of the things I've noticed in the other videos is they like to show you the before in all the different modes and then the after in all the different modes, and then you've got to remember what it sounded like. Normally they go quiet to track, and then so again the last thing you heard was track mode, then you go to quiet mode. So what I'm going to do here is show you quiet mode, normal, sport, and track back to back, normal versus with the resonator delete H pipe, and that way it'll give you kind of a better sound. I will say one thing, where I went, it's a little bit of a residential area, and there was somebody parked next to me when I did the after, so I was trying not to get on it quite as hard. So if you don't notice a big sound, trust me, it's there. I try to get on it in track mode a little bit so you could hear it, but I just wasn't trying to piss off the neighbors. But trust me, you definitely can hear the sound, so check that out. All right, so that about wraps it up. Let me know what you think about the H pipe. Now, obviously, if you wanted more power, if that's totally what you're after, more power and torque everywhere in the curve, the X pipe is the way to go. But in my opinion, it's just a little bit too raspy for my taste. This is a really good sound. I took it up on the freeway, drove it. No droning. Honestly, I don't see why this couldn't have came from the factory just like you see it. The only thing I will say is on cold starts, it does sound to be like a little bit drony and loud. I think all Coyotes do that. So maybe you just start in quiet mode and that'll solve that problem. But otherwise it's great. In track mode, you do get a couple little cracks and pops which is fun. And the big story here, I think, is the torque, because you're really seeing a lot more torque. I know before I said you saw more torque, 20 to 40 foot-pounds, all the way up until peak torque. Really, as I look at that graph with the H pipe, it's up to about 3,500, 4,000, and then it kind of drops off. The X pipe carries it everywhere. So again, if you're really interested in picking up torque everywhere, the X pipe is the way to go. For me, I can tell this, honestly. I can tell, you know, just taking off from a red light, anywhere from up to about 3,500 where you're kind of shifting, you can feel seat of your pants. It's a little bit more responsive. So that's super cool. And again, I only spent 150 bucks. So I think it's a really cheap and easy mod to pick up a little bit of power, a little bit of sound without going crazy. Now, in future videos, we are going to compare my wife's ZL1 versus the Mach 1, kind of across the board, not just performance, but drivability, creature comforts, all that stuff. So that will be another video. But for now, I just wanted to get that installed. I've got a car show to go to tomorrow, so I just wanted to get that on there and be done with it. So that about wraps up the video. I hope you enjoy the new content on the Mach 1. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button, and we will see you next time on Truck and Roll.